to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and welcome to Straight Talk, the place where those people gather who love to think. How are you today, Mr. Harris?
I'm well today, Mr. Solomon. I trust you had a productive day doing whatever it is you do throughout the
whatever it is you do there, Mr. Solomon, whatever that thing is.
I was seeing the hair look like it.
No, I haven't got it cut yet.
I was saying, getting a little long. It's only been like a week.
You'd have to use the yard instead, and you can't call this long. I keep telling people, all right? when you stand the ladder up, it's tall.
Tall.
When you lay it down, it's long.
Okay.
So you got to say your hair look tall.
Yeah, look tall today, brother.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what to say outside weather-wise. I mean, we had pretty much nice overcast skies throughout the day today, and potentially could be looking at some rain this evening. But today was not quite as hot as yesterday, at least not from where I found myself, though.
It didn't feel as hot? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I didn't think it felt as hot today as it did certainly yesterday. Yesterday seemed to be a lot hotter. I almost thought, but then again, it may have very well been in my mind, or the fact that I was driving and had my hand out the window, but I thought it was a bit breezier today than it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we'll touch on what we can expect weather-wise in a few minutes. But welcome to the listening audience. Happy to say that we are once again broadcasting live on your favorite radio dial, 103.1 FM here on Bobo FM, but likewise simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook. Hopefully, as I look over my shoulder, we have a much stronger internet connection than we did yesterday. And I don't see any drop frames on this end, so hopefully those persons who sought to raise the alarm yesterday will agree that they are, in fact, picking us up on streaming video. Let's hope so anyway. But if they're not, I know they will be very quick on the draw to tell us, and we certainly do appreciate it. The phone lines are open at 745-2626 on this open mic, Wednesday here in studios. If talking is your thing, though, you can always reach out to us on our WhatsApp line by dialing 928-2562. And from there, you can either share a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. And I'm going to throw it out there just for completeness, though it doesn't seem to be the most popular choice of communication these days anyway, and that's email. You can email us at host@straighttalk.ky. And as usual, all of those messages all come to one place. And if we receive them while we're on the air, we will share your comments.
Emails is probably just as old as rotary phones.
Probably is. That's right. You know, if you can't text or WhatsApp these days, email me. Exactly.
It doesn't sound that snappy now.
No, it doesn't. Kind of like, well, tie a note to a leg of a pigeon and send it over.
Smoke signals.
That's right. Though I will say one thing about those old days, less chances of being hacked, less chances of being spoofed, because usually the person on the other end is usually legitimate.
Just because people...
Or it could just be a house fire. You go, is that, what are you trying to say? I can't quite understand it.
Yeah. You talked with the email about being hacked? I think just wasn't that much people online back then.
Yeah, maybe that too. Maybe that. I think you might be right. Weather-wise, let's take a look at what's going on outside. Compliments to Cayman Islands National Weather Service. A ridge of high pressure is expected to dominate the weather pattern across the Northwest Caribbean through the next 24 hours, resulting in light to moderate winds and smooth to slight seas. A few showers are anticipated tonight into early Thursday morning, Those showers may be accompanied by a few bits of rolling thunder. Winds tonight will be out of the east at 5 to 10 knots. Sea state will be smooth with wave heights of less than 2 feet. And the outlook calls for a slight increased chance of cloudiness and showers all the way through until Friday and into the weekend as a tropical wave drifts across the Western Caribbean. So that's a quick look at the weather brought to you by the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. And let me just add, they have, as of today, gone and changed the format. Ain't it just like government to fix that which ain't broken in the first place? So they've reduced the amount of text, which gives you the forecast for today, tonight, and tomorrow. And they've replaced that with a bunch of graphics. So I suppose you could say there are more pictures, Ellio, but I would have to scan through at least 4, maybe 5 different frames if I were to give you a complete view of the weather picture, which is more work that I'm prepared to do right now. So we'll just give you the sort of highlights, the snippets. And if you want to get this weather for yourself from the National Weather Service, you can log on to weather.gov.ky/forecast for your full weather synopsis brought to you by the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. We have a number of good news items in the news today, starting, of course, with the Island Games. Cayman squash players have swept the board, winning gold, silver, and bronze in the women's singles on Tuesday at the International Island Games held in Orkney, Scotland. The squash players' impressive performances, along with a strong showing by Cayman's gymnasts and swimmers, who we talked about yesterday, now bring the medal tally for the Cayman Islands to 17 medals, with 3 more days of competition ahead. In the final of Tuesday's women's singles squash, Cayman was guaranteed to win a silver and a gold as 2 of the island's players, namely Jade Pitcairn and Emma Turnbull, faced off against each other at the Picacoy Center Court on Tuesday. Pitcairn took the gold at 3 sets to 1 with a score of 6-11, 11-6, 11-4, and 11-9, obviously securing a silver for another Caymanian competitor. Cayman's Michaela Jans van Rensburg made it squash medal trifecta when she won the bronze in the women's singles against Jersey's Beth Garton, 3 sets to 1. Meanwhile, in the men's division, Cameron Stafford, now there is a familiar name in Cayman squash, playing for Cayman, made it through the heats to play in the bronze medal playoff in the men's singles, but lost to Gibraltar's Ivan Flores Vela. At the close of competition on Tuesday, the Cayman team had won 4 gold medals, 4 silver, and 9 bronze in gymnastics, squash, and swimming at the games in Orkney, which is just off the coast of Scotland. For those of you within the sound of my voice who want to obviously check out the games live as they happen, as well as, again, confirm that I'm not lying to you as it relates to the medal count, well, you can check it out online at Orkney, ORKNEY, 2025.com. So there you go. We're doing very, very well at the Island Games. And I think yesterday we talked about, what was it, the number of sports Cayman is competing in badminton, swimming, gymnastics, athletics, sailing, and squash. Obviously, the badminton is next. The sailing is next, and also the athletic events are also next, which hopefully we will wrap up our week or getting close to the weekend with some more good news to share from the Island Games.
You said there was a Pitcairn in there. Is that
there was. A Jade Pitcairn. I don't know who her mom and dad is, but they
Who
can't
your
be
mom
too,
is?
I don't know, but it can't be too many. Can't be too many. If you are the mommy or the daddy of this young Jade and you are listening to the program,
text me. Let me know.
text or give us a call, even better, and tell us about your little girl and her fantastic performance so that we can join you in celebrating your daughter and, of course, our Caymanian sons and daughters' achievements as part of the Island Games that are taking place.
Congratulations.
Yes, absolutely.
All of those persons participating. Best of luck.
From the athletics pitch, we move on to the greens of the UK Golf Open. A trip to golf's oldest championship involved stops in 2 other countries for Justin Hastings as he arrived in Northern Ireland last Friday to prepare for his 3rd major championship in a surreal year that still has him talking about the dreamlike scenario he is living. Hastings, who is just 21 years old, is in the field due to his Latin American Amateur Championship victory in January, one that came with the most remarkable of perks. It won him a spot not only at the Masters in Augusta, Georgia, but also the U.S. Open and the Open. He missed the cut at the Masters, but then earned low amateur honors last month at the Oakmont Country Club, being the only amateur to make the U.S. Open cut. He took part in the prize-giving ceremony on the 18th green afterwards, alongside U.S. Open champion J.J. Spawn. So he's definitely rubbing shoulders with a number of golfing greats, and it's nice to see K-Man right there front and center with them. Now, part of the challenge in getting ready this week for the UK Open is acclimating to what is called links golf. And that, of course, is defined as a style of play that is unique to that part of the world. The sandy-based courses are firm and fast, and the game is often played much more along the ground than, say, in the PGA Tour in the United States, where you're used to those long, lofty, hanging drives by the like of Tiger Woods and otherwise, those pitch wedge moments, again, where you lob the ball perhaps over a sandbox or maybe over a body of water. Much different in the UK side of things. Those shots will be lower, closer to the ground, and hopefully traveling a heck of a lot faster as well, and that's going to take some getting used to. While players of Hastings' caliber are accustomed to firm greens, and certainly the wind in Grand Cayman, the ground game and learning to keep the ball lower and often short of the putting surface is indeed a unique aspect, and it remains to be seen how well Mr. Hastings will do on that course, as he has done largely in American courses. Hastings' first round at the UK Open will tee off at 6:57 a.m. local time on Thursday. That works out to about 12:57 a.m. Cayman time, with round 2 teeing off at a much more respectable and civilized time of 11:58 a.m. local time, or 5:58 a.m. Cayman time on Friday. This, the 153rd Open Championship, will be taking place at the Royal Portrush Golf Club in Northern Ireland. And unfortunately, I don't have a web link address for folks to follow, but hopefully between now and tomorrow I'll find one, and I'll share those details with fans across the Cayman Islands. But likewise, we want to send our best wishes and congratulations to Mr. Hastings again for his unbelievable accomplishments, and it certainly has been, as he says, a surreal year in golf that started in January and we're only in July. So that's your sporting good news. I want to say a great big congratulations to all our athletes on their fantastic achievements, both here and abroad, clearly taking the Cayman flag into many new and uncharted territory for Cayman sports athletes, and we could not be any prouder. 47 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock, and I suppose we can include this in the good news category, Ellio. It certainly is good news to the ears of many Caymanians, particularly the 8% or so that find themselves unemployed, hopefully suggesting that perhaps their chances to finally find lasting employment might be closer than they think. The Cayman Islands government plans to introduce comprehensive immigration reforms as of September. The policy overhaul will feature a 2-year employment lock for work permit holders and dramatically extending residency requirements for those married to Caymanians. The Minister for Caymanian Employment and Immigration, the Honorable Michael Miles, announced the plans during an interview on Radio Cayman on Monday. He said the reforms will prohibit temporary work permit holders from changing jobs for a minimum of 2 years. Violators will be required, once these changes take effect, to leave the island for at least 6 months before returning, in a measure that aims to target what he defined as widespread abuse of the current system. Mr. Miles stated whilst on Radio Command, and I quote, "What's tying up our work permit system right now is that people are coming into the country on a temporary work permit, and they're coming in maybe in janitorial services, and then within 3 months, they are now in either construction or the hotel industry or somewhere else. The immigration reforms will also extend to marriage-based residency pathways as well. Spouses of Caymanians will now need to wait 7 years before applying for permanent residency, increased from the current 1-year requirement, so it's quite a stretch. Those seeking Caymanian citizenship through marriage face, get this, a 22-year waiting period before you can get citizenship through marriage. Now, there's a huge...
So you got to marry Caymanian and be with them for 22 years?
You got to be with them 22 years and prove to the government that this is not a marriage of convenience. I'm here for the long haul, and I have his babies or, whatever the case may be, and see them through school and get them into the first few years of university in the process. And then, maybe then, we will be deemed worthy of the citizenship of Caymanian status. The ministry said it will also implement mandatory cultural assimilation programs for new work permit holders within 3 to 6 months of arrival, rather than waiting until permanent residency applications, which again, getting to know the Cayman Islands, requiring you to take classes in the Cayman Islands, and, what does huyafa mean? And when we say soon come, what exactly are we referring to? These find themselves amongst the laundry list of reforms the government plans to introduce as part of their immigration reform system. Miles described the package as returning to comprehensive reforms that were watered down through previous policy decisions. He said that changes aim to ensure that Caymanians are being given first preference, when it comes to employment opportunities, and certainly greater opportunities in succession training. So there you have it.
That definitely gives us a lot to think about and talk about, Austin.
It certainly does.
I mean, first of all, I don't know, was there ever a time in Cayman that you had to be with someone for, what was it, 22 years? I don't remember that.
I tell you, I've never, it's unheard of. It's unheard of.
I've never heard of that.
I mean, and you look at, okay, let's forget marriages for convenience or for immigration status, just marriages these days in general. How many marriages last 22 years? The marriages of old, like our parents and perhaps even in our generation, yeah, they may see 20 years. But these days, folks get married, they get married in a rush. They may see 5. If they're lucky, they pull 10 years together. But before long, they're split and moving on, doing different
Well, there's a lot of divorces going on. I don't think you can get most Caymanians to stay together for 22 years anymore, but yeah. yeah. But why don't you just make it? I mean, I don't know. I have to think about that. I mean, I definitely, I think I can see the intention, but I mean, imagine you marrying someone and then your wife or your husband is like, well, you're not Caymanian yet. Our child will be out of college before that happens, buddy.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I don't know if it lends to settling.
So much for equality.
I don't know if it lends to settling.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Why not just say something like, if you want to become a Caymanian, you just drop your other citizenship. I mean, that would show how serious you are, how committed you are.
Yeah.
I mean, after all, if I want to join your family, hey, it's because I'm saying to hell with the other one.
Mm-hmm.
This is my family now.
Yes. No, quite right.
I don't know, but interesting. And then this thing on the temporary work permit, I agree with that one.
Mm-hmm.
That would definitely be working generally to stop a lot of the moving up and down, but that would require enforcement.
The golden key word, my friend.
Because you have a lot of companies that I can tell you, they've become like recruiting agencies now. They're bringing in 10 employees, and then they're sending them out to work for different people and just pay me a certain amount of money every month.
Yep.
So you'd have to be tracking and seeing, can I see your temporary employee? Exactly where is he or she? So, and that's the problem with all of our laws, right, is pretty much enforcement. Not that we don't have the legislation, not that there's not some rules somewhere, but there's an issue about enforcement. So I definitely think on the temporary work permit one, the minister would have to complement that by talking about, how much money is being put to get new officers for enforcement.
I think we have our favorite friend on the air. Good evening, caller. You're on the air. Oh, didn't stick around. 745-2626 is the number. She's called us back. Let's go to it.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
I want to ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When you had married a Caymanian first, before all these extra things come up, how much years you were supposed to be with them? Not 7 before you could get anything?
Yeah, I thought it was 7 years.
I think
You might be right. Let me look.
to the best of my knowledge, I actually think it used to be around 5 years or so.
I never get nothing off of mine, but I was with him 7 before I decided to marry him.
Mm-hmm.
And listen now, total I call it, we've been together. If God spare my life to see spare our life to see the 26th of January next year, would be 51 years. But I call it 7 dirty, because the dirty years were when we wasn't married for the 7 years that we were living in fornication or whatever you call it. And then the rest is the clean years. But I still say we've been married 50 years because it was the same man. Because people used to tell me 2 things they know that I get when I come to this island. That was 1 job and 1 man.
Very good.
So that's what. But I never get 1 job. 'Cause I used to work. Bug Bakery. I work with John Franklin. I work with Miss Billy Lee. I work with Clinton down when it was Periwinkle, 19 hole. I work Mr. Norberg Cottages in the Haven up South Sound. So it was just 1 job. But it's with 1 man. So I call it 50 years because it's the same man. And then I tell them, they say, the wowsers tell that for better, for worse, tell that do us part. And I don't know who can die before me or him, but I'm sure this is 1 marriage. I can say tell that do us part. Because I ain't going nowhere, and I'm sure he not going nowhere now. Because I would tell him, I'm glad I'm not going to run the wrong husband out there. Because I would lick him with conch shell, I would lick him with cement block, I would lick him with anything. Because some of these women two-faced there. And like them girls had tell me on the other show about they're not fighting for no man. I said, not the matter fighting for the man. It's fighting for the respect. Because some of these are two-faced there. Mm-hmm. They know that you're married, but then they won't try to take a side. Because when I had licked that one with the Basara with my shoe down Lion Center that night, she know, and even her colleagues had to say, she know that she was running this man. He's a married man. She see him out, and she seen me out that night. She should have lay low, but she wouldn't lay low. And I told my sister and Mr. Barclay, God bless his soul, he was living that night. Living that night that I bought her, because I thank him for taking my sister to go dance with her, because they left me to guard the table, and I told my sister, I can boss her, you know what, tonight. And I need to kill her down there, but for faithfulness,
traditional family values.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you, darling.
I tell him it's not a matter of fighting for man, it's the principles, because if I was fooling with somebody's husband, I was going to have a little respect and don't think that I am the boss. Because the wife's supposed to be the boss, but I tell her one time, you must be think that my husband got me on top of the roof of the house, and he sleeps in the room in the bed by himself. Because one night she had called him, and I answered the phone, and she cost me a bitch, and then I went and rushed her on Cayman Airways, and Mr. Vernon and Mr. Wall Anderson, them had to pull me off the ramp, because I want to kill her right there. So,
a good thing to stop you from doing that.
Good thing. Good thing.
yeah, because I would have been in jail. Because, like I tell them, I can't beat nobody, but I ain't afraid of nobody. You know, if you attack me, is you going to either you going to beat me, or I going to beat you, or you going to kill me, or I going to kill you, because that's how I am.
I hear you.
I ain't afraid of nobody. I got blood pressure and water pressure.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Thank you so very much, my dear. Appreciate your call. Eager to hear what my colleague has to think about your strong moral values. This way, say it's not about fighting for your man or woman. It's about respect.
So what you want to hear about my opinion?
I don't want to know what you think about it, because, you know.
And then when I start, they're going to tell me how I stuck on that. Ellio stuck on that like a dog on a bone.
Just to answer her first question, though, any marriage that happened before January 1st, 2004, persons would have to wait 5 years before earning Caymanian citizenship.
That's what I remember. It's 5 years.
And anyone getting married after January 1st, 2004 would have to wait 7 years before gaining Cayman status or being legal and ordinary resident.
The clunker is working right, Austin. You heard me say that 5 years.
I did hear you say it. You got it right. We're going to pause, though, at 58 or now 59 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock. Check in with the top of the hour news. But there'll be more Straight Talk still to come right here on Bobo 103.1 FM.
Bobo.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News, the world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to talk shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. Doctors in Britain have announced that 8 babies have been born using a pioneering 3-person IVF technique to prevent them from being born with devastating mitochondrial disease. Our health and science correspondent James Gallagher has more details.
Mitochondria are in nearly every cell. If they're defective, then the body is starved of the energy it needs to function. It can lead to severe disability, and some babies die within days of being born. Mitochondria, though, are passed only from mother to child. So this method, pioneered by UK scientists, combines the egg and sperm from mum and dad with the healthy mitochondria from a second donor woman. The resulting child inherits 0.1% of their DNA from the donor.
Syria says its army has begun to withdraw from the predominantly Druze city of Suwaida after days of deadly clashes. The Syrian Defense Ministry says it comes after an earlier ceasefire agreement following an operation against what it called outlaw groups. Israel has claimed that Syrian forces in Suwaida have been attacking Druze civilians in Suwaida city and province rather than protecting them. Our State Department correspondent Tom Bateman is in Washington.
What the Americans have been doing, they said throughout the night and into today, was talking to both countries and other parties involved to try and get this de-escalation. So we now have a statement from Marco Rubio within the last hour or so saying that they have agreed steps about taking this forward and that they fully expect both or all parties, they said, to implement these.
The US and Israel-backed group that has taken over food distribution in Gaza has given a rare press briefing after at least 20 people were killed in a crush at one of its sites. A spokesman for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, Chapin Fay, blamed Hamas for causing the crowd to surge.
19 individuals were fatally trampled. One was fatally stabbed, and the 19 victims who were trampled likely died due to compressive asphyxia, otherwise known as suffocation. Make no mistake, this tragic incident was no accident. This was a calculated provocation, part of a pattern of targeted efforts by Hamas and its allies to dismantle our life-saving operations.
Gazan officials and eyewitnesses say tear gas was fired at starving people who'd been corralled into a small area while they waited for food. President Trump has launched another personal attack on the chairman of the US Central Bank, saying Jerome Powell was doing a lousy job. The president has repeatedly criticised Mr. Powell for not cutting interest rates. There is renewed speculation that he might fire him. Mr. Trump confirmed that he had discussed the matter with Republican legislators, but said it was unlikely that Mr. Powell would go now. World News from the BBC. A pro-Russian group blamed for hacks on critical infrastructure across Europe has been dismantled in coordinated action by EU crime agencies in 12 countries. The hackers are accused of launching thousands of denial-of-service attacks, especially in Ukraine. Here's Anna Holligan.
The group called No Name 05716 recruited its supporters on online platforms, gamifying participation and distributing malware that allowed as many as 4,000 users to unwittingly contribute their device's power. Hundreds of cyber attacks were carried out in Germany alone, targeting arms manufacturers, power companies and government agencies. As part of the global police operation, more than 100 servers were taken offline and 8 suspects, among them the alleged ringleaders based in Russia, were identified.
Ukrainian officials say a Russian airstrike has hit a busy shopping area in a town near the eastern front line, killing at least one person and injuring more than 20 others. The head of the Donetsk region said a half-ton bomb was dropped on Dobrapilya, damaging dozens of shops and nearby buildings during the evening rush hour. The Togolese government has defended the use of force to quell a series of opposition protests against constitutional reforms that pave the way for the Nyasingbe family to extend its 5-decade rule. Since June, people have also been angered by the arrest of government critics. A government minister told the BBC activists living abroad were instigating violence to destabilise Togo's government. President Trump says Coca-Cola will start using cane sugar in the recipe for its famous soft drink for the American market. The exact formula has been a closely guarded secret since the US food giant was launched in 1886, but it is sweetened with high fructose corn syrup. BBC News.
Opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM on your radio dial and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook. under the key search words Straight Talk Radio Show. We're your hosts, Ellio Solomon and myself, Austin Harris. The phone lines remain open at 745-2626 is the number in studios. If you've got an opinion on the proposed immigration reform plans, not least of them, with the immigration minister calling for a 22-year wait for persons married to Caymanians before they gain citizenship status. Previously, if you were married before January 1st, 2004, you'd have to wait 5 years. And if you were married anytime after that, then you'd have to wait 7 years. But we are going to almost triple that number.
Let's see if we get it right. 5.5 governments will pass before you get that. I don't really think that, again, like I said, I think I know where the minister's trying to go with that, but I don't think that's going to work. I think that that's going to be challenged.
Without a doubt. I think we may
from
have
a human rights perspective
on the phone now. Let's go to the phone lines. Good evening, caller. You're on the air.
Good evening, Austin. Good evening, Ellio. Kenneth Brian here.
Good evening, Mr. Brian. What do you think about this 22-year wait for couples, particularly one of them is not a Caymanian, before they can be made a Caymanian?
I think it's only fair. I mean, if you love somebody, 22 years in, I don't think there's any questions whether you want to stay in that relationship or not.
I would say not. And I think after 22 years, one could care less whether they're Caymanian or not at that point.
Yeah, I was just thinking about how long you got to be in a marriage before you say, I'm all the way in now, I ain't got to come out now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But I was hoping I can speak about immigration, but bring up something that I think may be a little bit controversial.
All right.
But I think at a level of sympathy.
You mean more controversial than waiting 22 years to become Caymanian? Sure. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I think this just might hit the mark.
All right.
And it has to do with the marriages of convenience. Now, there seems to be a very long list of persons waiting for their rights to work due to marriage to a Caymanian. Mm-hmm. And you may have heard about the board trying to investigate these marriages of convenience, and therefore these applications have been waiting in limbo and keep on being delayed. Now, I definitely agree that we have to get a handle on marriages of convenience because there's a lot of them. But in the midst of all of that, there's also marriages of honesty and of love and of good family. And what we got to recognize is that they're seeming to be taking an approach of you're found guilty before your trial as opposed to innocent until proven guilty. Because it's like a person is being penalized by not being granted the right to work when married. And I'm not thinking about the non-Caymanian in this situation. I'm looking at it from the opposite effect, which is here's the Caymanian who has decided to marry somebody that they love. Remember now, let's not think about the ones that we know are out there gaming the system and they paying somebody just get married on certificate. What about somebody that, who is genuinely married and this is my partner, I have to pay for our household, we got to pay our bills together, we love each other, maybe even have a kid, and we got bills to pay. Now, you normally share those expenses, but the other partner can't work because of being caught in a net of what the country should bring under control, which is these marriages of convenience. But because marriage of convenience is so hard to prove and it's so subjective, you heard these horror stories of board members asking all kind of questions about, what's the time of the month for the wife and all kinds of inappropriate questions. And it was been rumored for some time, so much so I was a bit disgusted when I was in cabinet hearing it. But this goes to show how difficult it is to, identify and be sure that somebody is in love with somebody. I mean, how do you prove that? And what I'm worried about is good marriages are being victims of the national perception of so many marriages of convenience. And I think that it needs to be quite like when you go to court, you either prove your case or not within a certain period of time. You just can't be caught in delay forever and ever. I've had now one of my constituents who's a Caymanian married, and I have no reason to believe it's a marriage of convenience at all. Seems to be in love. I see them at church together. I see them all over the place together. 3 years waiting for his wife to be able to work, and as a result, obviously taking care of all the bills because his wife cannot work, because that would be illegal. So I go, how long does it take before you make a decision? Now, of course, most voters are going to say, well, what are your business about them for? But I'm not thinking about it about the person who's going to get the application. I'm thinking about the Caymanian partner who's in love, who's sharing a partnership, and also how to share the expenses of life and responsibility, and it's a burden on them as well. So we got to think about those persons. I just want to know what your thoughts were on that, whether that'll open up a line of controversy or not. But there is another side to this that needs to be considered.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bryan. We do appreciate your thoughts and your observations on this point. I don't know if I'm the right one to talk about marriage and, my views on it. They say marriage is a gift from heaven. But then again, so too is thunder, lightning, tornadoes, and hail.
I'd like to, I thought Minister Bryan was going to stay on the phone. I was going to ask him some questions. I mean, let's ask ourselves some fundamental questions about this, because I almost had to chuckle as I heard the goodly deputy leader talking about this issue. What is the definition of a marriage of convenience? So I want to start there. What is the definition?
I think you once said all marriage is a marriage of convenience. Did you not?
Well, I actually got, I agree, but I actually got the quote from a judge. I wouldn't want to be robbing it. Okay. I mean, it's argued that all marriages of convenience to some extent. Mm-hmm. So I can see where you can have some sort of a financial arrangement where someone is simply paying someone in order to marry them, in order to stay in the country. That clearly is something that is an offense. You start stepping outside of that, and you really have to start asking yourself, how do you know it's a marriage of convenience? Which is where, again, it was interesting when he raised the comments, for example, officers asking, well, when's the person's time of month, et cetera. Well, I don't really see necessarily why that is a problem. Because if you are attempting to determine whether the person really is involved in the marriage, I mean, just about any reasonable question between two couples should work. What color is her toothbrush? Mm-hmm. What toothpaste does she use? Mm-hmm. Or vice versa.
Right.
But I think that somebody really, and I'm pretty confident there's probably not even a definition out there for this marriage of convenience, but I think that's probably a good place to start. But I don't think that 22 years is going to work, because what you're trying to tell me is that the normal system and process would allow a person to be able to apply for permanent residency at, say, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and then be granted status not long after that. But yet someone doing it by marriage is seemingly penalized and has to wait 22 years no matter what. So that in itself doesn't show the equity. It doesn't show equity there. And I'm pretty confident that under the European human rights, it has something down there about right to family, et cetera, et cetera. I'm confident that that's going to be challenged. And I would love to go away from here and do some research as to what other countries are doing with respect to marriages. But I would dare say that if we ever wanted to come first place on anything, that would probably be putting us first place. I don't know of any country that's probably saying you have to be married for 22 years. And I think you also have to do the regulatory ramifications of this to ask yourself, well, what are some of the potential challenges that comes with it? What's the pros, what's the cons? And how does this upset family life in terms of the person being able to entrench themselves and really take care of their wife or their spouse, their home, their property, and that includes their children with that level of uncertainty. I'll never forget meeting a civil servant once. It was a civil servant that was here for 20 plus years and didn't have any tenure in the country. And the argument way back then is very simple. If you have a certain period of time to decide whether you think the person should have a right to stay here or not. If they don't, then send them home. But I don't, like I said, with the greatest of respect, I'm going to do a little bit of a research on it. But I don't think that 22-year thing is going to work. I think it will be easily challenged under the European Convention on Human Rights. And not that I'm in a big flag waver for the European Convention on Human Rights, but I can respect human rights when I think at least it makes good sense. You know, freedom of expression being that you can take a cross and turn it upside down in urine and then call it art, I don't agree with. But I would agree that, all right, let's put it this way. I am inclined to agree that 22 years seems a little bit excessive. I think if you want to be able to deal in terms of whether someone have a marriage of convenience, again, to be defined, I think there are questions, there are investigations and stuff that can be done. And I strongly believe if somebody really wants to be a citizen of this country, really wants to entrench themselves and call this place their home, give up your citizen in the other place. I bet you'll have a lot less applications at that point. Very, very simple. Because I can tell you, if I went right now and I say I want to get my citizenship somewhere else, there's a reason why I want it. There's some push factor that's taking place why I want that citizenship. And I have a very important decision to make. Am I leaving my home or am I planning on returning? And if I'm planning on returning, then there you go. Ask for some kind of a residency. Ask for some right to stay and to work. But don't tell me that you want to be a citizen. You don't want to be a citizen. You just want to reside here for a period of time and then go back home and work, die, and be buried in your home country. So on the 22 years, like I said, I don't think that's going to work. I think it's going to be challenged. And I'm going to go away, do some research, and be able to talk about it a little bit more effectively. And on the temporary permit, I think all those things come down to enforcement. They, without doubt, the minister is correct. There are people coming in the country via these temporary work permits, and they're working for the employers. They're paying a employer, but working for other employers. Then they also have them where they're just bringing them here so that they can transition on to other jobs, and they get paid for that too. You know, there was a Filipino national a couple of years ago that was, what was that? Like charging $5,000 for every person they were bringing here. This is the kind of nonsense that goes on. But, yeah. So, but the bottom line is that comes into enforcement, because who is going to go out and check to see if at the end of the day, this person that you got a temporary work permit is actually working for you? You know, you have to be able to have someone that can do the immigration audits to say, knock, knock, can I see John Brown? Oh, he's not here. It's Tuesday. Why isn't he at work today? Have a good reason. And come with me and let's see if we can find John Brown. Those are the kind of audits that has to take place, and I doubt it's going to take place. Why I can say I doubt it's going to take place? Because I also know that there are provisions under the employment law, for example, that allows the officers to be able to go, sit down in an office and say, you had an expatriate worker here. They were just making $120,000. You have Austin now replacing them. How much is Austin making? And you come to find out Austin's making $50,000 for the same job that was being paid $120,000 just 1 month ago. And under the law, they have the right to be able to file that as a discrimination and fine the company. And when was the last time that you and I have ever seen a company fine for that? I dare say I haven't heard of it. So I think I can be pretty confident that you're not necessarily going to get any enforcement on that issue.
Well, I just want to point out, again, these proposals by the minister are just that, proposals. They haven't made their way into amendment to law just yet, but perhaps this is the direction in which they're heading. But under the present law, which is the Immigration Amendment Law 2018, again, we talk about having to be married for either 5 or 7 years, depending on when you got married. You know, in order to be legal and ordinary resident, that is the thing to get your residency employment rights certificate. Being married to a Caymanian is not enough, but the spouse who's non-Caymanian must be living legally and continuously for the requisite and required period, again, either 5 years or 7 years before they get their RARC. The step after that is permanent residence. And a spouse of a Caymanian can also apply for permanent residency and an employment rights certificate, but this can be done after 7 years of marriage and residency, or through the standard 8-year residency route, whichever one they wish to take. You know, some folks say, you know what, I want to become a Caymanian or a permanent resident under my own fire, and I want to do so necessarily under the banner of marriage. So some folks choose to wait the extra year who are married and say, listen, I'm just going to do it through the normal route available to any citizen, whether married or not. whilst others who are married will have to wait 7 years and need to be in a marriage for 7 years before they can apply for permanent residency. After permanent residency, a person can apply for Caymanian status, and that has been the stated pathways to Caymanian status, if you will, or naturalization along the way.
It doesn't take too long, right?
It doesn't take too long, but I mean, I think, 5, 7 years, reasonable timelines, what I disagree with is this notion, and again, and I just want to state, there are a lot of people in this country that think that all you got to do is get married.
Mm-hmm.
And right after, day 2 of their marriage, the spouse, male or female, has automatically the same rights, and that's not the case at all. But as you oftentimes remind folks, ignorance is no excuse to the law. So in many cases, we need to properly understand what the law states in the first instance before we go about trying to fix it. But 22 years to wait before a person can have Caymanian status, or have their immigration status regularized. I don't know if that is going to make it less or more appealing to get married in the first place. And what about those that want to have kids? To your point, arguably your kids will have more rights to immigration status than one of the spouses by virtue, presumably, of being born in the Cayman Islands to at least one Caymanian parent. At the time of birth, that child obviously then takes on the nationality of their parent. But suppose it's a wife, or suppose it's a husband. Suppose the wife or husband are the breadwinners. What are the likelihood that marriage is going to, A, survive, or more importantly, if it does survive, is it going to survive in this jurisdiction? So I think we expect politicians, and this is, I guess, sort of par for the course. Politicians come around and they fix things that aren't necessarily broken, or in some cases, they take them to the extreme, much like we're starting to see in this whole, fishing regulations, which hopefully we'll talk on a little bit later on this evening. But 22 years is a bit of a stretch, I must admit. On the temporary work permit side, I think there's a lot of room to suggest that is in fact happening. A person's come in, you get a temporary permit for 3 months to 6 months. Usually after you got a 6-month temporary permit, you've got to apply for, a 1 year. But there are persons who've had extended temporary permits. That's fine if they stay in the same job with the same employer, but regrettably, that's not usually the case. What is new would be the recommendation that persons who take out a temporary work permit, before they can change to the next one, they have to leave the island for 6 months. Again, you have companies saying, well, what is the likelihood this person's going to wait around 6 months in another jurisdiction just for the chance to come back? What are the ramifications and the impact on the local economy? I'm all for fairness for Caymanians, but reality check. If you post a job ad either in the newspaper or on the work site and no Caymanians apply, what are you going to do? You're going to allow the business to fail? You're going to allow the wheels that run our economy to stop moving just because we didn't get Caymanian applicants?
Well,
again, I don't want to sound cruel, but I live in the real world.
Yeah, well, don't worry about sounding cruel. You see, again, this is kind of where I left off yesterday. There is a scripture. It basically says something to the point of, and I paraphrase, but one of the follies that I see in the world, it says, is that I see princes walking and servants riding horses. And there's another one that talks about our children being our oppressors. And I believe that what we're seeing more and more, not just in Cayman, but in the world, unfortunately, is what I'm going to call these emotional politics. It's a politics of emotions. Because this is where you get this particular energy that it sounds good. We go with what feels good. Sounds good. Feels good. Mm-hmm. As opposed to being led by something of real logic and principle. And let's just look at this. Again, without me dragging on the minimum wage, you get the minister who says, I understand the hardship of the Caymanian family, but I can't in good conscience let someone come here and work, in this case, for less than $8.75. But yet at the same turn, another feeling hits you, and it's two people that potentially genuinely love each other. And let's be clear on this too. You don't even have to have love to have a successful marriage, and I can talk about that too. So bottom line is you have two people that potentially genuinely love each other, but the same person who doesn't want to see the unfairness is saying that I need to see you married at least 22 years before I can give you that sense of stability. You know, to put your all into this marriage, to put your all into this country, to invest in property and to raise children and to be a productive member of society. You need to rub with me for 22 years. It doesn't match up. You know where that only matches up? Is when you say of significance, if something doesn't make logical sense, it's because it's not logical, it's emotions. And I know you're kind of telling me we're going to go to a break. What's the time check on that?
You have about a minute left.
Yeah, so we can continue the discussion because honestly, I think it's very important. I think if you're looking at what you're seeing on the immigration front, the marijuana, the no-wake, I see, unfortunately, something that's laced with what I believe is too much emotion. It needs to be something that is clearly logical and trying to make sure that you're working towards achieving those ends. In this particular case, and I want to say one last thing before we go to the break, I'll resume when we come back, is that we need to get out of this as Caymanians to feel as if we're getting ahead, we're being successful, if it looks like somebody else is being punished. Again, that's another emotion that at some point in time may be right, but probably in most instances, it's not really the correct situation. And I'll pause there so we can go to a break.
Well, certainly to use the words of the minister, the goal of the current government is to introduce immigration reforms that would take a balanced approach, with the government also agreeing to tighten up on job mobility for work permit holders in favor of Caymanian job seekers. We're going to pause, take a short commercial break, but keep it locked. We'll be back.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
Be prepared. Construction costs have gone up, so you may be underinsured. Call your insurance company for a checkup to make sure you have enough coverage for your home and belongings. Be informed. Make a plan. Be prepared. For more information, visit caymanprepared.ky.
That was a Stingray Media Hurricane Tip brought to you by Foster's.
Storm smart with Foster's this hurricane season. Water is essential for hurricane prep. Ensure you have at least 1 gallon of water per person per day for at least 3 days. Dehydration is a serious risk during emergencies. Stock up at Foster's and ensure you have enough to keep you and your loved ones hydrated throughout a storm. Go to fosters.ky/emergency-checklist for more information. Be safe and get hurricane ready with Foster's to stay ahead of the storm.
It's trivia every Wednesday from 7 o'clock at Sandbar on the Georgetown waterfront. Your chance to win some fantastic prizes in our free-to-enter Trivia Madness. Great offers on beer buckets, margaritas, and a delicious menu served throughout the evening. Grab your pals and get along to Sandbar every Wednesday from 7 o'clock for the most fun you can have with your clothes on. Are we ready?
Yes, Marty!
Then let's do this. Trivia, Sandbar, 7 o'clock, Wednesday. See you there.
When you're on the go, the experienced team at Foster's Pharmacy are here to help. Drop off your prescription while you shop or WhatsApp us and we'll prepare it, ready for your arrival.
Whether you need prescription or over-the-counter medications, blood glucose testing, or advice on vitamins and supplements, we're here early in the morning to late at night. Both of our locations at our Camana Bay and airport stores are open 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday to Saturday.
For more info, visit fosters.ky/pharmacy. Foster's Pharmacy. Better health because we care.
We need to talk. Okay. We've noticed you've been going to KFC a lot more than usual lately. And
that's fine. We know you love it.
We just don't understand how you could afford it.
The KFC What a Deal menu starting at just $3. Gives you lots of great choices and value. Available at KFC Baytown Plaza, Shetton Road, and in the Strand. The KFC What a Deal value meals. The deal everyone should know about. Come to KFC and enjoy a variety of tasty choices at surprising prices. KFC, so good.
Shirts, pants, or linens. When you want them clean, just drop them off at Island Cleaners. Island Cleaners is a full-service dry cleaner, meaning you name it, they clean it. Professional shirt service, fluff and fold laundry, and more. Even drape and area rug cleaning and alterations, from quick hem jobs to resizing dresses. Island Cleaners, your one stop for everything clean. Art Code Drive off Shedden Road. Ask about VIP and prepaid discounts.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. Powered by Health Services Authority. Committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, Cayman, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook. We are your hosts, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris, and the phone lines are open. 745-2626 is the number here in studio. If you want to lend your voice to the discussion on the table right now, of course, talking about the sweeping immigration reforms being announced on Monday by the Honorable Minister responsible for Caymanian employment and immigration, the Honorable Michael Miles, calling for as much as 22 years for people to be married before one of the spouses, perhaps a non-Caymanian, will have the same legal rights to remain in the country as perhaps their partner. During the break, we got one message. It says, this is an anti-business stance by Michael Miles that is going to light our economy on fires. He might as well make it 50 years for expatriates. I mean, really, 22 years of marriage before both partners can be considered equal. That's more than 25% of someone's life. Come on, Cayman. We are better than this as a people. This is a hateful proposal to our people and to expatriates alike.
And like I said, I mean, again, I don't want to be too harsh because I want to, again, give a little leeway for intentions. But I can definitely say from a cursory overview, it doesn't make sense. And continuing on with this politics of emotion, if I may, Mr. Harris,
sure, is that
you have to ask yourself, first of all, how do you even come up with 22 years? Why 22? Why not even 20? You know, it's like, no. Needs to be 22. And I'll tell you why. And so these are the sort of things that we as a country should be sitting down as hopefully having some intellectuals, you know, going to our universities and all of us, not just the parliament, all of us debating these issues and being able to grapple with the challenges that face us. And what I mentioned earlier is what I'm seeing right now in the whole world, period, but definitely in terms of our politics, which is important for us now, is this emotions. It's, if you notice, if anyone even seems that they're going to lose an argument now, it doesn't bolster up logic. Let me see how I can speak that tears people's heart out. Oh, Ellio, you got to consider how people are suffering in their homes, the challenges that they're having, and they're living in squalor.
Don't you have a heart?
Don't you have a heart, Ellio? Look at the word of God, Ellio. You see, it's nothing about logic anymore. You know? I was having a discussion just this morning, and I'm speaking from good practical experience. At any point in time you want to challenge me, you can challenge me. Here's a person's going to live in a house, and you can give them a really nice place, and you're going to come back, and the place looks like a pig pen. Now, you tell me, on God's green planet, what minimum wage is going to do about that? What any of that nonsense is going to do about it is just, again, the way some people are, including some of our own. And so when we look at this politics of emotions, I'm going to say we have a no-wake law being proposed, and I don't care really right now who's affecting. Basically, a law that says if you go speeding through in a boat in a particular area, you could be fined or be in prison. We have it for a reason, Mr. Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And primarily it's for a reason because there might be a kid swimming, an adult swimming, someone diving that you can't even see, and you're risking cutting their heads off.
Yep.
Okay? And now here's the argument. You don't hear a logical argument against this, you know. You hear, yeah, but someone got arrested, and then we could ruin their lives. They can't go to college. What is this? Then you again, back on the marijuana, it's the same thing. You know, it needs to be decriminalized because someone could be denied an opportunity for health care, or someone could be denied an opportunity to go to college. So we want to get that one out. And then now we're on 22 years of you need to be married. Let's just be clear. Are you really telling me that if I am going now, I'm being empathetic, I'm in the other person's role, in other person's position. I'm going to go to some foreign country and legitimately like someone. And I'm going to get married, and there's no way that I can perform as a citizen until after 22 years. Are you really being realistic? Have we reached this on a mental level? No. You can't possibly tell me that. Okay? And I don't have a problem if you want to go to the top of a building and jump just because you want to jump. I don't have a problem if you want to say, I want to legalize marijuana because I just want to smoke it. That's fine. But I think we really need to get past the emotions, right? There's a reason, in my humble opinion, that God even designed things the way he did in a home. A woman is the heart and a man is the head. And it's when head and heart can work together and agree, reach that center. Let's just look at it from a child. A child falls and skins his knee. It is the mother's reaction to heal and to nurture and say, oh my God, oh you, and kiss that up. And the child needs that. And the father comes, and at some point he says, okay, geez, how about time you kiss the boy? Come on, let him get up. And it is this balance, it is this friction between these two poles that at the end of the day creates a normal and productive and healthy family. And what I'm seeing right now is an energy of just simply pure emotions, largely, that is driving all of this. And I keep telling you, when you talk about permits, I had a colleague and I who had the same discussion, won't call his name because I don't have the right to say so. But the biggest thing hurting Caymanians right now about permits is the mobility factor. The fact that the foreign national cannot move is hurting you. This is why one of the reasons why everybody got so peed off when they were granted status. Because all of a sudden, all your now employees just packed up and left and went and started their own business. That's mobility. I want to tell you that, again, it defies logic. It seems a little counterintuitive, but if you made it that the foreigner can just run around, go anywhere he want to go, you have a lot less foreigners being hired. Because you answer me and tell me why you can hire a foreigner for a $10,000, $30,000, $40,000 permit that as soon as you hire them, they're gone next door for another job. You're going to say you might as well hire a Caymanian. But you see, if you said that to Caymanians, they'll say, oh, you're coming like you're looking out for the foreigners. Our minds are so screwed up.
Yes.
No, I'm trying to help you. And again, not to harp on it, I'm seeing the same emotion about the minimum wage. We are here as a country arguing that I want to give these guys more money. But I can tell you something. Let me give you logic on that as well. The same person that you want to give the additional $3.75 to help survive better in Cayman is also a partaker in another world of which he's making probably 10 times his pay. The Caymanian who you're going to get the $3.75 to doesn't have the other world. This is the only world he has. So I really want us to get past the politics of emotions because that's where I see us going, and I see it being very destructive for the country. And so when I hear 22 years of marriage, I don't think that can work. The very system that we have now that is clearly stating that an average individual can come here, make certain investments in property, can work, can go through the point system, get citizenship within a 10-year period of time. But if a person marries, and let's use the emotions, out of love and care for the other person, must serve 22 years in prison before he or she can have the same right. That makes no sense. And let me just go on the point when I talked about marriages. Let's be clear about something. There's other parts of the world. Let us look beyond the pond. There are countries that have arranged marriages, and many of them work. Many of them work. Because this is another thing. Again, back to the feeling. We have to have this super feeling before anybody can get married. You may very well have a man that loves a woman and the woman doesn't love him initially, but he loves the ground she walks on. And they get married. And you know what? She'll love him. She loves him. And I could make a few statements, but we're still PG, so I'm not going to say it. Bottom line is, she loves him as well, and they stay together. What happens to the Caymanian that equally wants to marry the foreigner? Let's make it easy for us to understand. Wants to marry the American because they would like one day to have the option to go to America. Is that a marriage of convenience? So there needs to be a national dialogue about this, and let's put mind and hearts together. Let's strike a balance. And I would like to give one thing, at least as far as my opinion, I believe it is supported by the word of God, if that means anything nowadays, is that where the head and heart does conflict, where there is conflict between the head and heart and they cannot agree, then the head should rule, not the heart. That's the reality, whether we like it or not.
Well, thank you for those thoughts, and I can't say I disagree with you, certainly on the point of using emotional logic rather than just sensible, good old-fashioned logic. Thinking for a second as to what it is you're trying to change and how you're going about doing it. What troubles me with legislation, or at least proposed legislation, such as the one that is coming from the Minister Miles and his National Coalition for Caymanian Government, is that whilst it may resonate with, and I'm going to call it the mob, those that perhaps are out there looking for someone to blame, and the foreigners are just a convenient scapegoat, are missing the point. When we look at Cayman's labor force, it has always been, since time immemorial, that there simply are not enough Caymanians to occupy all of the jobs that are available in our labor market. Yes, there are questions about fairness that can be improved upon, but here I defend that argument by saying, well, let's start enforcing some laws as opposed to creating new ones and giving the people the belief that this is exactly what is needed. Putting in a policy in place like you have to be married 22 years before your foreign spouse can be on equal footing immigration-wise as the other one is, all that is going to do, my friends, is drive a wedge between Caymanians and non-Caymanians. Mm-hmm. We talk about housing and the shortage of housing, but we also talk about the fact that, wages are such that Caymanians aren't making the same bang in dollar wages as their foreign counterparts, but we discount the fact that those foreign counterparts in many cases are working in professional industries. They come with degrees and qualifications and experience, whilst, again, we see more of our women graduating from university than we do our men, and we can't quite figure out that dilemma. But we certainly see that those with the education get the higher wages. But let's keep it simple. Let's keep it about property, because the one thing we will not argue on, and it's been argued by the mob, that, the problem in Cayman is real estate and real estate developers and foreign real estate sellers that are putting properties in foreign owners' hands. You already have a situation in Cayman right now where landlords will say they don't want to rent to NAU. Why? Because they can't get their rent paid. But now you introduce a government that takes a extreme pro-Caymanian stance at the expense of the expatriate worker, who, by the way, happens to own the majority of the properties and who right now, by the way, are in the majority in the workforce. Suppose those same landlords, those foreign landlords, say, you know what? We're not going to rent to Caymanians at all. We're going to rent to other foreign nationals, other work permit holders, other expatriates. but I don't want a Caymanian to rent my house or my condo. Can you imagine the uproar that will come if that makes public knowledge? We need not divide our culture at a time when in reality we need to find ways to work together. I think the employment database that the minister proposed, which again is not a new idea, was proposed under a previous administration, but like Mr. Bryan pointed out yesterday, credit is not given to the government that, thinks of the plan, but to the government that can take the plan across the finish line. And sometimes time and circumstance prevents that from happening. I'm not here looking for praise, but I'm here to state that why the database on overall labor in the Cayman Islands is important is because we need to be able to identify to our Caymanians, the next generation, the 800 or so that we graduate from high school every year, to identify to them where the key markets are, where the gaps are. When I say gaps, I mean where there are fewer Caymanians participating in one sector or the other, and where there may be more or greater push for expatriates. So if you're in high school and you're looking for a vocation, you might say, well, I don't want to go to college, but, I might be a plumber, or I might be a contractor. Where you go out and you learn a trade, TVET, technical and vocational training, and then you go out and you fill a gap that is presently absent from Caymanian participation. Stonemasons, point in fact. I think some of the best stonemasons this country has are Jamaicans. Not taking a thing away from them, but why can't Caymanians do that? The plenty of Caymanians are good with their hands. Arguably, largely, they don't know they exist. If we establish a database of all labor, not just foreign labor, but Cayman labor as well, then we are able to identify what jobs of the future are coming online and what our Caymanians can do to acquire those jobs. We think about, those Caymanians like my son and others who are in university. They're going to be there for 4 years getting an education. Some even longer as they work on their masters, or if you listen to my son, convinced he can get a PhD. And I'm here thinking, my God, son, you're going to have me working until I'm 90.
Stop wearing pants with pockets, Austin.
You know what I mean? But I admire the aspiration.
Yep.
And again, as my father told me, we all gonna go broke one way or the other. I'd rather go broke educating my child than die a happy man, because at least I know, when I'm gone, he can feed himself, house himself, put a roof over his head because he got a good education. But if we don't know what Caymanians are studying at universities, then we can't match it against the skill set that some foreign national has that a Caymanian does not have. So when that foreign national's job comes due in 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now, we can be proactive by identifying a skill gap. We can identify a Caymanian that's going to university and plan it to the point of almost absolute precision, so that when that permit is done, that Caymanian can either acquire the position or certainly acquire close enough to the position to apprentice, to learn, to gain the experience, to ultimately take on the job. But creating a labor market based on empirical evidence rather than the finger in the air, like the 22 years. How do we come up with 22 years? We stuck our finger in the mouth, pointed in the direction east and west, and depending on how strong the wind blew, we picked 22 years without considering what
the emotional calculus problem
and the consequences that will come from it. But what troubles me more than anything else, and we praise ourselves about it, we brag about it, that for all of our warts, the Cayman Islands has successfully succeeded in a social model that cannot be compared to anywhere else in the world. We got over 130, 140 different nationalities living in relative peace and harmony, one with the other, here in the Cayman Islands. You show me anywhere else in the world where that much cultural diversity exists and they are not at each other's throats. But here we are, choosing to play the emotion card instead of doing what is necessary, introducing relevant legislation for something that does not exist, a gap that does exist, and how are we going to address it logically, whilst also, instead of bringing in new legislation, we've said it before, Cayman has no shortage of laws. Yeah. What we have a shortage of is enforcing those laws. And I want to get onto this new fishing ban at some case, because there are parallels between what this National Coalition for Caymanian Government are doing, playing to the gallery, playing to the mob, playing on these emotions, without proper consideration to the unintended consequences that these actions will bring about. And that is not good for any of us, foreigner or Caymanian. And likewise on the fishing side, creating laws to give the voter the belief that, look, I'm doing that which no government has dared to do before.
One last comment on this.
But without asking the question, what is it that we're trying to fix in the first place?
I know you want to touch that fishing one. I want to hear it from you too, because, again, it's your sport. It's your thing, right?
But you asked me yesterday, I didn't have an answer, and that made me, ponder it a little while.
You did a little research on it.
So I took it on as a challenge that I need to, because Ellio asked me a question, and I should be able to answer him.
Yeah. I just want to give this again, so that we can offer up and ensure that the balance is there. Let us be clear. I know of many instances, as harmonious as this society is, I know many instances where we do have foreign nationals that are taking advantage of Caymanians and taking advantage of the Cayman Islands. I can give a few if you'd like. But suffice it to say, that can be the thing for another program. But bottom line is that the areas that we are being taken disadvantage of is going to only be solved really by the enforcement of laws that we already have. And that's where I gave even about the discrimination law that exists within the employment law. It is about enforcement. And I just want to offer the balance to say, I don't want to judge the minister too hard. I think there's a scripture that says, finding part for the silver, fairness for the gold, and God alone judges the hearts of men. But let me just say this. I believe, as I've said many times before, I don't think anybody gets elected to high office with the intention of destroying this country. That said, it doesn't mean that you won't unwittingly do so. You can destroy it even though that was not your intentions. So I want to believe that the minister and the government has good intentions with what they're trying to do. But I'm going to suggest to them that they reconsider on that particular proposal, and that we really need to sit down and have some national dialogue to make sure that we have head and heart reaching the right consensus. Because I don't think 22 years makes sense. I think it's an insult, to be quite honest with you. Because it would be hard for me to believe that your son tomorrow might be marrying a foreign national, whether it be here or he's going to another country and have to endure that sort of thing. So I just want to say that, and I now know that you are now going to tell us a little bit about this fishing thing, which will probably, again, in my humble opinion, point us in the direction of more politics of emotions. But go ahead.
We have about 5 minutes remaining.
Oh, and you want more time?
I may probably want to wait until after the break, but I just want to pick up on the point that you're making because, we don't want to be too harsh on the National Coalition for Caymanian Government. That, we have to believe, to your point, that no Caymanian politician, sitting back at night devising ways in which, to scuttle the Cayman Islands business model, the economy, its people that live here, which make up, of course, foreign national and Caymanian as well. But, let's put Michael Miles and immigration to one side and just pick on tourism for a moment. And again, I have the utmost of respect for Gary Reddy. I went to school with Gary Reddy. He's a friend for, not just yesterday, but I've literally known the man since, I was knee high to a grasshopper. So there's somebody that I know and I respect, and I was moved by his comments at the conference at the Marriott where he wants to return Caymanians to Cayman's tourism product. It makes sense because, after all, let's face it, that is where our tourism product started, with Caymanians. But arguably, I think the approach in which he's taking, as well as the approach that they're ignoring, demonstrates speaking out of both sides of their mouth in the one instance, and in the second instance, it demonstrates inexperience in the role in which they're occupying. It is easy to get up and say the right thing and win hearts and minds and, move the needles, draft a bit of legislation that deals and works at the emotional level without any consideration for the unintended consequences that lie waiting for you around the next bend. Because arguably your term in office is short. 4 years goes by in a blink of an eye. If you're lucky, you get reelected. If not, you're out of the way before the disaster really hits, and then you can blame it on somebody else. Thus is politics in general, but certainly it is island politics across the region. But when I look at tourism, and again, I'm going to bang on the cruise drum for a second, and I'm going to make this statement. The Caymanian face in tourism has long since passed its, consume by date on the stayover side. I argue that Caymanians' participation in stayover tourism has seen its promised land, and that promised land has since moved on past them. And we see it after every new hotel that is opened. We hear the promises of Caymanian job opportunities, but long after they open their doors, there are no Caymanian faces that are facing the tourists, and the only jobs that are available to Caymanians are picking up a towel on some beach, picking up a trash on some beach, or folding and washing clothes in the back of the house. Those are the jobs that are being given to Caymanians. There's a few sprinkles along the way, but nowhere near the 600-700 that they start out by promising when these hotels and grandiose structures are simply exist on a drawing board. Once they get the permit to build, then all those promises go out the window. But arguably, on the cruise side, that's where the Caymanians still have a foothold. We just spent 3 months arguing about cruise. Who's the largest Caymanian that runs the tenders? Is that company owned by foreign nationals or Caymanians? Mm-hmm. Caymanians. Who operates those boats? Are they not Caymanians? My point indeed. You look at water sports, where, again, the major bread and butter of the cruise tourism crowd in terms of, sites that they visit. Who runs those water sports operations? Caymanians. Caymanians used to run the tour buses, but not anymore. We buy the tour buses, but we hire, expatriates to run those tour buses, and we get the state of affairs that we do. So I hear what the minister is saying, both of them. They're trying to play to the crowd, to say the right feel-good things, but their actions and the directions in which they're taking us say a different story. So that is where I'm going to leave it, because you cannot look at tourism just from one side and say Caymanians need to be highlighted. Well, again, look at it. From the stayover side, we had our day. We started this thing, but we've since been pushed in the corner. On the cruise side, we still largely have a foothold, but nobody's paying attention to that. And the government appears to allow cruise tourism to die on the vine, as if we can somehow afford to lose $300, $400 million in revenue a year. And then on the labor side, we are fundamentally preparing ourselves to light our economy on fire by penalizing the very people that help make it a success that it is. But keep it locked. We're going to pause, take a short commercial break, but there'll be more Straight Talk still to come on Bobo FM.
Bobo.
BBC News.
BBC News.
World news from the BBC. Violent clashes.
Thick black smoke.
A tremendous legal victory.
Crucial elections.
Destructive wind.
A search and recovery operation.
A race against time.
An imminent threat.
Flying a drone over a rival team's training session.
Whatever is happening, wherever it's happening, catch up with the latest news bulletins from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
The BBC's From Our Own Correspondent.
In today's Russia, no one is allowed anywhere near the political stage if they pose a serious challenge to Vladimir Putin.
Stories and reflections from our reporters around the world.
There is a major sense of insecurity here.
More people are coming in from Sudan every day. From Our Own Correspondent from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
A vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world. Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority.
At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands.
Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. Doctors in Britain have announced that 8 babies have been born using a pioneering 3-person IVF technique to prevent them from being born with devastating mitochondrial disease. The procedure combines the egg and sperm from the mother and father with a tiny amount of DNA from the egg of a second donor woman. Bobby McFarland is Professor of Paediatric Mitochondrial Medicine at Newcastle University.
To see the relief and joy on the faces of the parents of these babies after such a long wait and such fear about the consequences for them from their family histories, it's brilliant to be able to see these babies live, thriving and developing normally.
Syria says its army has begun to withdraw from the predominantly Druze city of Sueda after days of deadly clashes. The Syrian Defense Ministry says it comes after an earlier ceasefire agreement following an operation against what it called outlaw groups. The United States called on all sides to honour their commitments. Israel, which earlier launched airstrikes on Syria's Defense Ministry and presidential palace, has claimed that Syrian forces in Sueda have been attacking Druze civilians rather than protecting them. The controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has given a rare press conference to confirm that 20 people died at its food distribution site in Gaza on Wednesday, but it blamed Hamas operatives for causing the violence. The organisation is backed by Israel and the US. Imogen Folks reports.
19 of the dead were trampled by the crowds as they waited for food. One was reportedly stabbed. A spokesman said the GHF was heartbroken, but claimed the deaths were part of a pattern of attacks by Hamas to undermine the foundation's work. This is just the latest tragedy linked to the controversial foundation. The UN Human Rights Office has documented almost 700 deaths, mostly from gunshot wounds, of people trying to get food at GHF sites.
President Trump says Coca-Cola will start using cane sugar in the recipe for its famous soft drink for the American market. The exact formula has been a closely guarded secret since 1886, but it's sweetened with high fructose corn syrup. Here's Arun Mukherjee.
In a post on his social media platform Truth Social, President Trump says Coca-Cola had agreed to using real cane sugar in the US as a result of his conversations with the company. He told his followers, quote, "You'll see, it's just better." Mr. Trump's health secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has voiced concern about corn syrup's health impact. Mr. Kennedy in the past has also been specifically critical of how much sugar forms part of the American diet.
BBC News. President Trump has launched another personal attack on the chairman of the US Central Bank, saying Jerome Powell was a knucklehead who was doing a lousy job. The president has repeatedly criticised Mr. Powell for not cutting interest rates, and there's renewed speculation he might fire him. Speaking at the White House, Mr. Trump confirmed that he had discussed the matter with Republican legislators, but said it was unlikely that Mr. Powell would go now. Republicans in the U.S. Senate have said they will spare the U.S.-backed HIV/AIDS program known as PEPFAR from planned cuts. In January, as part of a push to reduce government spending, Donald Trump announced a freeze on foreign aid. This led to warnings of a spike in HIV infection rates around the world. Astronomers have for the first time observed the earliest stages of rocky planets forming around a distant sun-like star. They say the process will shed light on the birth of our solar system. Paddy Maguire reports.
Using telescopes on Earth and in space, astronomers have captured images of the nascent planetary system more than 1,000 light-years away in the Orion Nebula. The nuggets of these new planets are minerals condensing and solidifying from the massive rings of gas and dust surrounding a star, HOPS 315, a yellow dwarf in the making, just like our own sun, but much younger. This first glimpse is being called Time Zero, but astronomers say the process of becoming a fully formed solar system like ours may take more than 1 million years.
The largest piece of rock from Mars ever known to have landed on Earth is sold at auction for over $5 million. The 25-kilogram meteorite was found in the Sahara Desert in Niger in 2023. It was dislodged from the surface of Mars by an asteroid strike in recent years and carried to Earth. BBC News.
The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 on your radio dial and simulcasting live over YouTube and Facebook. As I look over my shoulder, yes, the internet connection is still holding strong, no drop frames at all. So hopefully you are both seeing and hearing your two favorite hosts, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris, here on the program. Time in studios now 7 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock as we move into our final segment of the evening. And Ellio, with your permission, with the time that we have remaining, I want to touch on the question that you asked yesterday when we, of course, raised the issue that Cabinet are taking the steps to bring regulation or legislation that will ban non-Caymanians from fishing in Cayman Islands waters. And of course, you asked me, Austin, you are the sport fisherman in the room. What do you think about this particular proposal by the government?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Inquiring minds want to know. Thank you. Thank you very much for confirming that was the statement yesterday. And I answered as honestly as I could. I fish, for my own purposes. I certainly don't do it as much as I would like. And usually when I fish, whatever I fish for, I'm going to eat if I'm lucky enough to catch it. But I certainly don't have an opinion when you're looking at, the question of overfishing and who's doing it. So I didn't have an answer. But after I left the studios, that stuck in my head. Talk about ruminating on a thought all evening long. And I thought I could go home. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I want to eat some food. I want to get to bed, because I got a long day tomorrow. But I just could not get the thought out of my head. So instead of turning east, I decided to head west into West Bay and to seek out the real fishermen. And when I say real fishermen, these are persons that do it for a living. And again, much like water sports, the fishermen that really do it for a living, in large numbers, they live in West Bay. They're West Bay persons. And I had my visa stamped for the Republic for another, 4 years. So, I got freedom of movement in the Republic. So I said, why not? Let's go down to the Republic and ask a few gentlemen what their thoughts are. So I asked, I did run into two such Caymanian fishermen who fish for a living. They do nothing else but fish for a living. It is through fishing that they put food on the table, keep a roof over their head, put clothes on their children's backs, etc. And I asked them the question, what do you think about this legislation? And of course, they see it at face value and they go, it's all right, but it don't go far enough. But when I asked them to expand on it, of course, that's when things started to break down a little bit. So I started to break down the question for them, and this is where I got the education. I said, is there proof that there is overfishing in Cayman Islands waters, particularly by foreign nationals, thereby depriving Caymanians of their birthright of being able to fish in the Cayman Islands and expect to find something when they drop a line in the water? And the answer I got was yes and no. And I asked them to expand. So when they say yes, there are more foreign nationals fishing from the shoreline than there are Caymanians across the Cayman Islands, bar none. And at face value, that would suggest that perhaps they're taking away opportunities from Caymanians who, again, aren't doing it in large number. And I think the reason why a lot of Caymanians aren't doing it in large numbers is twofold. Number one, the fish that are being targeted from the shore are usually the smaller species of grunt, what we would call goggle eyes, which is another term for the squirrel fish, the red ones with the big eyes. All of these fish, kind of bony, but they're wonderful on a dish. You fry them up, don't take too long, you know what I mean? You can have a meal in 15 minutes after you've done the cleaning and all of that. And therein lies the observation. I asked, okay, so there are foreign nationals fishing the shoreline for these smaller species of fish, but are they doing so to make a buck, or are they doing so to feed themselves and their family? And they believe the latter. They said, no, Austin, I think they're doing so because, again, wages being what they are, foreign nationals being a large majority of the persons who are on the shorelines, they're working the blue-collar areas, so they're fishing to feed themselves. So then I said, well, if they're fishing to feed themselves and not selling it commercially, are they overfishing and are they disadvantaging Caymanians in any real sense? And the answer was, again, an honest, no, not really, Austin. However, they did draw the line when it comes to fishing offshore for the pelagic species of fish. Now, what are the pelagic species of fish, you might ask? The pelagic species of fish are the kind of fish that we like to see and order on menus when we go out. They include wahoo, tuna, dolphin, no, not the flipper kind, but the fish kind, and also now to a certain extent, depending on the season and, of course, your ability and the boat you're on, swordfish. Now, what was highlighted here is that this represents a clear and present danger to Caymanians who earn a living from fishing, stating that there are many, was the wording that I was given, foreign nationals who, have a side hustle. They go out, they go offshore, they got a boat, first of all, and they go offshore, sometimes, just past the reef, sometimes a bit further to 12 Mile Bank and everywhere in between. They go out and they go through the same challenges, the same strategies of attracting, whether trolling or drifting, as we call it, for fish. They then catch the fish. But where they hurt the Caymanian is they bring that fish back to market and they're selling that fish arguably at below than market value rate. And because every restaurant, whether they be a standalone restaurant or a hotel restaurant.
Foreigners doing this.
Foreigners are doing this.
Okay.
Is obviously to corner the market because the restaurants and everybody, let's face it, is looking for a good deal. Why pay $18 a pound for, tuna when you can pay $12, for example? And obviously, if you do that, then these guys who are out 2-3 times a week, clearly they're starting to establish a client and customer base, and they get to sell their fish. Maybe their expenses are less. Maybe their needs are less. Maybe their boats are smaller, therefore carrying less fuel. I don't know how they're making it work, but they're making it work for them at the expense of the Caymanian, who is earning a living off of this fish by driving the market value down. But then that got me thinking. I said, well, who are these persons? And this was the surprising factor. It's like, you know what? They're not hiding. They're not even trying to hide. They know exactly who the culprits are. And, they named a few names. Of course, I'm not in the arena, so none of these names made sense to me. But the fact that they could name names and tell you about the individuals and where they work normally suggests it's no secret. So it suggests that you don't need to engage Scotland Yard to come to Cayman, do an investigation and figure it out. But in reality, if you wanted to address this problem, you can wrap it up in a weekend.
Right.
And more to the point, you do not need to introduce new regulations to do it. Because any foreign national, as you well know, who is operating a side hustle, as the term is used, is operating outside the terms of their work permit. That is their reason for being here.
Correct.
And that means they are in breach of both immigration and labor laws. And if you know who they are, they're not hiding, then you could sweep them up in a weekend, arrest, charge, and or deport them, make them persona non grata in the future, which would prevent them from coming back, and problem is solved.
Yep.
So again, you don't need to create new legislation to fix a problem that is disadvantaging Caymanians, and that's the first observation. The second observation that was made by these same Caymanians was the part of the newly announced regulations that give Caymanians pause is the section that said, and I quote, new protections for vulnerable marine species would also be established for all anglers, regardless of nationality. Now, this is the aspect of the law, and this is almost par for the course amongst politicians. They, on the one hand, introduce a new law to win hearts and minds, to address the issues that Caymanians have been struck with and challenging with for years, and this is how you get Caymanians on board. But at the same time, they're introducing new regulations that will only seek to squeeze or tighten the noose around Caymanians' neck at the same time. So they're pleasing them, but at the same time, pulling the rug out from underneath them at the same time as well. Now, the government has not expanded on exactly what this means. What are some of the new protections and what vulnerable species are you referring to? But the fishermen have an opinion. They believe, and again, this is not based on fact, but just on their opinion, they believe the area that the government is going after are those fishermen, either recreational or commercial, that are using cast nets. Now, what is a cast net? Exactly as it sounds. It's a net. It is an art form in which to use it and to throw it over a wide area. It's got weights all around the end so that as it hits the surface, it's like a mushroom size, but then it closes up as it sinks and thereby capturing, whatever fish may be in that immediate vicinity. Recreational commercial fishermen use this to capture largely sprats. And there are a number of variety of sprats. But the observation they made about the sprats is the sprats that are being targeted are not indigenous to the Cayman Islands. These are species that are seasonal. So they come and they go depending on the time of year. Number two, you cannot target this species of fish from the shore. Mm-hmm. So you must have a boat. So again, it's also very limited. It's not, any and everybody casting nets off a shoreline expecting to grab, whatever fish they can find, but it is very targeted, specific type of fishing. The problem, however, with cast nets is that obviously, whilst you may be targeting sprats, that net, once cast, will capture other fish that arguably may be part of what the government have defined as protected marine species that they feel they need an obligation to address. Now, again, the logical thought would be, this is an easy fix. You just require fishermen who are using cast nets to, keep only the fish that they're targeting, a.k.a. the sprats, which are used for both live bait fishing as well as dead bait fishing, again, in the pelagic realm, the bigger fish offshore. And then you throw back in the water everything else that does not match that definition. But there is one little problem with that. And again, I don't know this for a fact. I'm just selling to you as cheaply as it was told. Once a fish is caught in a cast net, obviously they aren't discarded immediately, or the fish that are being targeted are the priority. If you want to keep them alive, they're thrown into a live well. If you want to kill them, then you lay the net down and you wait till they die and then scoop them all up. But you're also scooping up some of the other fish as well. So the odds or the likelihood of other species of fish surviving after being caught in a cast net are unlikely. So even if you hit it almost immediately, there is a chance that you could very well be harming some of the otherwise protected marine species. But again, I say that maybe there's some fine-tuning where that proposal is heading. Maybe we don't need certainly we don't need new regulations. And again, I tell you why. Because unlike shore casting, persons who are engaged in this need a boat in order to access the breeding grounds or the spawning grounds or the migrating grounds in which these sprats live. But we have marine laws. We have existing marine conservation laws. So we certainly can apply these necessary changes to address the problem that we're trying to fix on existing legislation as opposed to creating purpose-built, standalone legislation to address this issue. I will also state, as stated by the fishermen that I spoke to, that it's really not the traditional fish per se that is the issue. And again, from the shore side, the people who are fishing for food, not commercial needs. On the offshore side, those that are doing it illegally are in breach of immigration laws, and they could be swept up over a weekend and, sent off, again, just simply by enforcing the laws that we do have. But where there is an identifiable need, and it is beyond question, is as it relates to shellfish, things like conch and lobster. There are foreign nationals overfishing and capturing these species, whether in season or out of season, and they're doing so for more than just sustenance. They're doing so for commercial means. Again, though, if it is foreign nationals doing this, you don't need legislation to address it. You just simply enforce your immigration and your labor laws. And we have seen this not so much with, well, we have seen it with conch in particular. You know, every season or so you get a picture on social media with somebody with a truck back bed load of conch that you know are more than the, you know, predetermined number. And you ask, well, whatever happened to this chap? You know, what were the consequences? Was somebody arrested? Was somebody charged? But you never hear about that. Let's take it a step further. And we hear about this often from those at the Department of Environment. Turtle nesting season. There are poachers going out there and literally poaching turtles, either as they are coming away from the nests or are getting ready to leave the water approaching the nest. And, you know, the Department of Environment, at least once a year, twice a year, you hear a report of a turtle being poached and all they found was the shell. Again, this is a question of enforcement. What we never hear is what happens to the poachers that are identified. Are they arrested? What is their nationality? Are they deported? We don't hear any of that. We just hear the act itself. But it goes to state that and suggest that as far as shellfish, conch, lobster, and to a larger extent or to a lesser extent, turtles, because of their sheer size, that it does happen and there needs to be protection where they are concerned. But in many cases, and always, most cases, it is not new laws that are needed, but a simple enforcement of the existing laws would nip this particular challenge in the butt, you know, very quick. And as I stated, for those who are breaking the laws, it's no secret as to who they are. They're well known in the fishing community.
And easy to solve.
It's easily solved. So, you know, on the one hand, a lot of folks are saying they see it at face value and they think, oh, yeah, this is exactly what we need. But they haven't thought about, you know, what is being applied, what are the real issues, and how all of these issues could be solved right now without having to go to Parliament, without writing a single piece of legislation, but simply exercising the will to enforce one of the many great laws that we have in this country now. We just do not have the ability, the will, the desire, the testicular fortitude to enforce them. So whilst I was not able to answer you intelligently yesterday,
right,
I feel better because, you know, I didn't head back east until, you know, at least 9 o'clock, but I felt informed and educated, enlightened and elevated.
Well, thank you for your investigative reporting.
You're more than welcome. And again, I hope this is of some benefit to persons in the listening audience. If you're a fisherman, if you earn a living off of this and you have a different outlook on this issue, then by all means, pick up the phone, give us a call and tell me, you know, I got fed the wrong information, but I don't have much fear of that.
You will recall me asking yesterday the question, and the immediate question that I had was, and I think I did ask it of Mr. Bryan as well, was where did this legislation come from? Where does this idea come from? Because I remember having a discussion with a gentleman, won't call his name, and this would have been almost 10 years, I'm going to say 8 years ago. 8 years ago in terms of this exact proposal. And all I'm going to say is, to the point that you read out earlier, where you talk about, you know, what's that saying where they came for the Jew, or they came for this one, they came for that one, and there was no one there to help me, and they came for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I dare say that the intention, in large part, in the long run, is at the end of the day to cease the fishing activity in many different areas. And I remember having similar discussions with the Department of Environment, even when I was in office. And I remember making the argument that you're wanting us to cease the fishing on this and cease the fishing on that, but in the meantime, there's a boat right now between here and Honduras that's raking up millions of tons of fish. You know, you can't consume what America's consuming, so you're almost protecting your environment for someone else to benefit. It's a bit like the wet foot, dry foot policy of the United States. Well, if the Cuban can reach the shore, then they can become an American. Well, then who benefits from that? They benefit because they're coming to our yard, and we have to house them and try to send them back on behalf of America on a good neighborhood policy. But you were able to play good politics and get a vote with your wet foot, dry foot policy. But I can tell you that, again, the Honorable Premier at the time, Mr. Wayne Panton, he would have signed us up along with Ms. Jean O into this Blue Belt Agreement. And I know amongst other things, that in itself does talk about taking a certain areas and making them that at the end of the day, there are MPAs or MPAs, they call them, where, you know, persons aren't allowed to fish and the list goes on. And we're fulfilling obligations, international treaties that we have signed ourselves up to, or they have signed us up to, that many of us aren't even aware of it. I'm sure you probably weren't aware of it. And I would say 99.99% of the public would say, what Blue Belt Agreement? And it's the same thing that I've seen even in relation to turtles. Understand that you have organizations like WISPA, and the list goes on, that is saying to you, I don't want to see the Caymanian people eating turtle. And they're not coming right out and saying that, but they're working to achieve that end. And they're coming to you with arguments, oh, you know, well, again, the same emotional arguments that we love to hear. Yeah, but we need to conserve, and we got to watch out for the poaching. But the end game is that you don't eat turtle anymore. That's the end game, is that you turn Turtle Center, for example, into nothing else other than conservation.
Yeah.
So there's a myriad of things for us to just be looking out for. And again, I think on the fishing thing, it's something that we can continue our discussion tomorrow.
Well, we do have two comments coming from the listening audience, one on both the fishing and the immigration side, and the other just on immigration. Let's take the first. The government is throwing all these ideas out there to see what the crowd runs to. Simple politicking. But this speaks to the competency as the two-party government to run the country. Let's see what the SBS will look like if we're so concerned now. Can't wait to see what that's going to look like. Another writer says, good evening. There are skilled, experienced Caymanians which apply for government jobs. They go online, spend time filling out the forms, and wait for a response. And then they get ghosted. No response and no info on who got the job. Are work checking on who has applied and linking with HR at the government building? Well, I will certainly say to the question, work is not looking at government jobs. Work is concerned itself entirely with the private sector jobs, and then persons going out and getting work permits. But nobody is arguably policing the jobs at the government portal to work internally to government. But this practice may very well be happening, and we thank you for drawing our attention to it. It is 29 minutes past the hour, 6 o'clock, and that's all the time we have for you this evening. As always, we hope you learned something new today that you didn't know yesterday, and we encourage you to tune in to Straight Talk each and every weekday evening, starting at 4:30 p.m. all the way until 6:30 p.m., right here on your favorite station, Bobo 103.1 FM.
The home of the BBC World Service, the most trusted news source in the world. This is Bobo 103.1. The following commercial messages are brought to you exclusively by Stingray Media.
Be prepared. Start the conversation now.